On behalf of our final presenter this morning is Shelton Good. Dr. Good, welcome. Diversity Manager for Georgia Power, who has a doctorate from public administration from the University of Alabama. And I don't know what your friends in Georgia say about a degree from Alabama, but I'm sure it's all good. But I also note from your resume that you're a professor and teaching at Troy University. So we're going to get both kind of your perspective from working inside a large organization, but also the public administration perspective. So welcome. Thank you very much for being here.
Good morning. Before I get started, let me say thank you for first just for having me here. Bill Stanley, who serves on what can best be described as a board of directors for our diversity initiatives at Georgia Power, invited me here to share with you some of the initiatives, goals, and best practices that we've implemented at Georgia Power. Now, that's significant considering that Bill serves on a number of boards and could have invited a number of people here from a number of companies. The fact that he asked us here from Georgia Power, I hope says something about what Bill has seen over the last 8 years in terms of our progress as we have tried to transform the 125-year culture to one that's more trusting and more inclusive. So just want to say publicly thank you to Bill for inviting me and having us here. Let me set some context on what I'm going to be talking about. You heard Dr. Thomas talk about yesterday the two most important and crucial questions that AIA needs to ask itself. Number one, what is it that you are trying to accomplish, and why are you trying to accomplish it? I can tell you at Georgia Power, we know what it is that we are trying to do, and we know why we are trying to accomplish it. What's significant is the fact that we did not come to the answers to those two important questions by ourselves. We had a lot of help. As a matter of fact, we had 632 million reasons why we had to get this correct. Georgia Power, which is the largest subsidiary of Southern Company, is a very good, a very successful company. But for years, as we increased the representation of the company, we had minorities and females tell us that the company was not a place where they felt included. They did not feel, putting it in the terms of Dr. Thomas, they did not feel that they, as a giraffe as an elephant in a giraffe house, was welcome, that they were valued, that they were respected, and therefore they could not do their best work. That, unfortunately, resulted, our lack of response, unfortunately, resulted in them going to some outside counsel and again hitting us with a significant lawsuit. The fact that AIA is trying to approach this from vision, I think you're going to find this a little bit more challenging than we may have given the burning platform that we did to respond to that need for change. In the few minutes that I have four things that I want to try to accomplish. I was specifically asked to come and provide you an update on our diversity and inclusion goals, discuss some specific initiatives that we've undertaken to achieve those goals, to share some outcomes that have become best practices, and describe how we in fact measure our success. Again, creating some backdrop for this, the one thing, again, that I want to reiterate that Dr. Thomas brought out yesterday was the fact that the things that I'm going to be talking about here could not have been done if there wasn't a relentless focus on developing a sustained leadership capability from the top down, and to make sure that we, in fact, created this capacity to manage diversity. So some of the things that I'm going to be talking about here are going to show you from a specific perspective of one Fortune 500 company many of the things that Dr. Thomas talked about yesterday. Georgia Power, who are we? We're the largest subsidiary of the Southern Company. We serve 2.2 million customers throughout the state of Georgia. And what we do is produce, transmit, distribute, sell, and deliver electricity. Based on our 2006 numbers, annual revenues of $7.2 billion, $787 million in net income, 9,000 employees statewide. Georgia Power in the state of Georgia is an icon. I don't say that. When J.D. Powers did a survey of one of the most recognizable brands in the state of Georgia, Georgia Power came in second behind UPS, and that's no secret why. I mean, those little brown trucks show up at people's houses and bring things that people order. To come in second behind a company like UPS is no short undertaking. We're known for reliability, low cost, and again, extremely positive customer service. Taking a snapshot of the company, you can see some of the demographics there. But let me kind of paint a picture for you as you look at the demographics. You're looking at a company that's over 125 years old. It's engineers. It's white. People that describe themselves as heterosexual. People that describe themselves as Christian. 65% or more of the company's employees have never worked anywhere else. Over 70% of the employees have a family member that works at the company. And as you can see, we have a high percentage of our employees who are retirement eligible. I couldn't help but snicker when Carol says, if your company can become diverse, any company can become diverse. That's the challenge that we've been undertaking at Georgia Power, specifically the last 8 years, to make it more diverse, to make it more inclusive. Georgia Power, when you look at it 10 years ago and today, there are a number of areas in which we've made some positive improvement. The number of minorities and females have both increased. When you look at the company in terms of the percentage of employees, one thing should jump out at you is that our company is getting older and older. When you look at the percentage of employees 45 and older, you're looking at well over 50%, almost 60% of employees. And when you combine that with the percentage of employees who have over 16 years of service, you're looking at, again, over half of our employee base is in fact retirement eligible. That, in fact, creates a business case for diversity and inclusion in our company. This is just a few of the drivers. There are many. But when you look at the fact that 60 to 70% of our company's existing workforce will become eligible for retirement within the next 5 years, combined with the fact that a lot of that talent, we're talking about engineers, attorneys, technical craft, labor, is going to walk out of the door. That will, in fact, usher in new faces joining the company in greater numbers than any time in the company's history. Those faces will look dramatically different than the faces that have been there for throughout the company's history. In fact, we're looking at the fact that the tensions that Dr. Thomas mentioned yesterday of having 4 generations in one workplace is going to create tensions and issues around work styles, preferences, perceived commitment levels. Let me give you an example. You heard from 2 previous speakers today in terms of Generation Y. We are a 24 by 7, 365 company. Our primary job, again, is keep getting the lights on and keeping them on. That does not fit very well with a generation who would prefer to work remotely and also work somewhere between 10 and 5. When a storm comes up and you have 200,000 people in the dark, you cannot get those people back on remotely. Someone is going to have to go physically out there, climb a pole, and begin to restore electricity. We are already seeing these sorts of tensions in our workplace. What is it that we are trying to accomplish at Georgia Power? Again, I want to tie this back with Dr. Thomas having kicked this off and me coming as a bookend. I want to tie this back again. One company's implementation of many of the things that you heard him talk about. We have tried to make this simple at Georgia Power. You heard Dr. Thomas talk about the 4 quadrants. You heard him talk about diversity management. Diversity and inclusion at Georgia Power is defined by its employees. In 2000, we had 11 employees tell us what it means to be in a company that is not diverse and is not inclusive. And what they told us, well, resulted in us framing our mission in the words that you see there. We're trying to create a culture where every employee feels valued and respected and productive. Now, as I said, we're a good company, a very good company. What those employees told us, though, as good as we are, there are 4 things that are distinct about our culture that if we got better at, we could be an even better company. Number 1, in our company, which is very hierarchical and top-down, employees have felt like they could not speak up openly and candidly. We will know that we are becoming more inclusive when on any given day, any employee would tell us in general that they can speak up, express themselves candidly, and in fact, they feel obligated to do so. That we listen to each other and hear each other with understanding, that issues and concerns are dealt with fairly and directly. Let me kind of paint a picture for this. If I have a issue with Carol, at Georgia Power, I would not tell you. What I would do is I would tell Catherine, you know, I don't know what's up with Carol. She just doesn't seem to get it. We don't deal with people directly. We deal with them in a roundabout way because we call that Georgia Power nice. That has to change. We want everyone to, regardless of title, regardless of position, to serve as a personal leader. And we want people to be allowed to learn from mistakes and move on. This is a biggie. In our company, where you have over 70% of the people that have worked there and have never worked anyplace else and have not left, if you make a mistake, it will haunt you forever. And that is something about our culture that we have to change in order for us to, in fact, consider ourselves to be inclusive. You heard Dr. Thomas yesterday talk about actions and initiatives. We have had, since 2000, over 70 specific initiatives designed to address issues that are barriers to us being more inclusive. The thing that, and you heard Dr. Thomas say this before, a lot of companies have a lot of initiatives. What we understood, learning from the best practices of others, is that it's not the initiatives and the issues, it is the fact that you have to have someone that's going to hold you accountable for those actually addressing the concerns that employees have surfaced. At Georgia Power, what we have done, and Bill is a member of this, we have a diversity advisory council that serves as an external source of accountability. We have 8 members. We meet at least 3 times a year, and they simply ask the question, Have you done what you said you're going to do, and how do you know that it's working? That is what makes the difference from simply having activities to having results from the activities. Again, just another snapshot of some other activities. Let me go back because I don't want to gloss over these too quickly. For an example, we have one of the things that employees told us is that we don't feel included. We don't feel that that there's a safe place for us to go and talk about issues. In response to that, we created, we did not create, we created an environment where employees could create 8 affinity groups. And so we have affinity groups around, such as the African American Women's Networking Group, the Amigos, which is a Hispanic affinity group, the Asian Pacific American group, which is, again, another affinity group. We have 8 of these groups, and these groups meet, and they are critical partners in helping us create a culture of inclusiveness. How do we measure success? When those 11 employees told us that we were not as diverse and not as inclusive that as we needed to be, we were able to frame those in 3 distinct buckets. Number 1, our HR processes for how we selected and promoted people, training, developing people, and our system of compensation was not perceived to be fair. Representation, you saw some of the numbers earlier. Our representation was nowhere near, regardless of what benchmark we used, it was nowhere near what it should have been. And then this whole work environment. And again, I want to give credit for Carol for talking about and surfacing for the first time during our discussion things like unintentional biases, things like micro inequities. Again, in our culture, employees felt like they could not speak out. If you were to challenge, if you were to ask a tough question that just so happens to embarrass the manager, that was going to hurt you. That was going to hurt you, and you're going to see in a minute that employees felt like they couldn't be who they needed to be without it hurting their career in a very tangible way. So we know what we need to do, and we are in fact doing very specific things to bring about this more trusting and inclusive environment. What do we? So Shelton, what are you guys doing? We have an annual survey every year that we use to measure our progress of cultural change and improvement. I just lifted 3 of the questions out of the survey and showed you the questions and then showed you the results. What we would be looking for here is at least a 65% favorable response to these questions. And so you can see the questions there. You can see the percent of favorable, neutral, and unfavorable responses to these three questions. And this is based on our last survey, which was done in November of 2007. Again, just a snapshot that we use to see if we're in fact making progress. And this survey is conducted every year. Again, in an effort to create a culture of excellence through inclusion, just another snapshot of a couple more questions. Of course, that would be the good story. And as Paul Harvey would say, and now the rest of the story. This survey clearly triages for us those areas that are neutral. And again, you may not be able to see this well, but the areas that are favorable and the areas that are unfavorable. What you saw was a quick snapshot of the responses to those questions, and those fell in the favorable area. The 10 most favorable areas are the areas that we have framed up specific initiatives to address, and want to show you how that looks. When we look, not only do we know how people are responding overall, but we take a deeper dive and try to see how that looks as you break it down around age groups, how you break it down around gender, how you break it down around race. I did not make slides around all of those, but I just want to show you this as an example because I think it was Carol, or I can't be sure who that was earlier, that talked about the generational challenges. And what we're seeing even more so than around race and gender is this new emerging differences in terms of our culture around age. Where things are good, you can still see a difference between how younger employees are responding and older, and when things are bad, how employees are responding. So in addition to age and gender, there is we have to look at initiatives based on how they could address issues as they are surfaced by generation. What are the challenges? What are the challenges going forward? There are still many, and we've been doing this for 8 years. And you heard this morning, you cannot do this overnight. Some of the things that I'm going to be showing you here is the culmination of almost 8 years and literally millions of dollars invested in trying to change a culture to one that is going to be more inclusive going forward. And these are ranked order. This issue of employees not being able to speak out, especially considering the number of Generation Y and millennials coming into our workforce, people feeling that they can't speak out without feeling like it's going to hurt them. That's the number one thing that we are trying to tackle. Their personal beliefs and their personal values with where we're trying to go with diversity and inclusion. Let me talk about that for just a minute. The fact that in 2008 we still have employees that we have to ask to find other employment because they do not get that certain behaviors in terms of sexual harassment, certain language, the fact that you cannot have a Confederate flag as a screensaver. We have to help people understand that regardless of how you feel, whatever your personal beliefs, if they are not consistent with where we are trying to go with this company, you're going to either have to reconcile them or you're going to have to find other employment. And that's a message that is reiterated from the CEO and president down all the way down through the organization. And again, we count on our external advisory committee to bring us intel, to meet with our employees, and to hold us accountable for what we say we're trying to do. We also have to help employees see the connection between diversity and inclusion and business results. Unlike some companies who found it easy to create a guacamole chip in an effort to get the Hispanic market, for us, it's not that easy. So we have to help employees at the ground level understand what it is we're trying to do and the connection between the success of the company and their individual and personal success. The trust gap. On this slide clearly shows that we have work to do. Employees love the company. They are willing to give more. They are willing to go above and beyond, but we still have not earned their trust. There's still things that we are doing every day that tells them that they still cannot trust leadership. And this is important because this was one of the major issues that launched us on our diversity journey to start with. Employee fear of retaliation, again, in an effort to be transparency and again to try to connect the dots to what some of the things that Dr. Thomas was talking about and how it actually looks in a Fortune 500 company. I think Marshall asked the question, can you do it all? Can you work on all four quadrants? And Dr. Thomas says you can and you should, but I will tell you, you cannot do it if you do not build leadership capacity around understanding what this is about and building the capacity to manage diversity in your leadership. helping our managers understand that our employees feel like they cannot speak up, cannot challenge, cannot be candid without it hurting them. That was something we had to help them understand that they had to first become aware of, and then secondly, change their leadership behavior to reduce this employee fear of retaliation. Turnover, we do not have a lot of it. We do not have a lot of it. But of those people that do decide to leave voluntarily and go work somewhere else, it's disproportionately female, disproportionately minority female, disproportionately females that have less than 5 years of service, and disproportionately females who are under 35 years of age. That's the exact demographic we can't afford to lose. So we, in fact, have a special initiative designed to figure out what is happening with that specific demographic and then put some things in place to turn that around. Challenges going forward, when we're talking about building the capacity to manage differently, this is what it looks like at Georgia Power. Our leaders from the top down are being held accountable, are being told that you're going to have to provide and be able to receive feedback, that you're going to have to explain the whys behind decisions. Again, we're hierarchical, top down, in some ways resembling the military. And that going forward is not going to be a recipe for success. We have to manage conflict by engaging in two-way, candid conversations. We have to heighten the sensitivity of leadership to employees' expectation of what they need to be fully engaged. We have to increase the ability of managers to manage across differences such as generation, gender, race, religion, and age. We have to increase the awareness and understanding of those behaviors that may be impacting on retention. And then, of course, reduce the employee fear of retaliation by changing behaviors that employees perceive as retaliatory, and then creating an environment where employees feel obligated to offer suggestions and recommendations for achieving goals. Just one closing comment. Again, went through an 8-year journey in very fast. But again, some of the things that you've heard from some of the previous speakers, I can tell you that in looking back over the last 8 years and looking at the tremendous investment that we've made to try to transform and change a culture that had been very, very successful by every benchmark, Southern Company and Georgia Power as its largest subsidiary, one of the most profitable, successful energy companies. To try to convince a culture like that is not a guarantee for success going forward is, in fact, very, very tough. We have been given a gift and a wake-up call and a mandate for change, and I can tell you that my boss, Frank McCloskey, the Vice President of Diversity, Jim Miller, the General Counsel for Georgia Power, have been told we are not going to allow another legal lawsuit to remind us that we have to change. That not only are we going to change, but we in fact are going to be a thought leader around diversity and inclusion, and not just be a company that wins awards for best practices. The award that we want has to come from our employees and them seeing us as a more trusting and inclusive culture. Thank you.